All right, we're live. Not sure if I hit 8 p.m. on the dot, but I tried to do it as close as I can. I've got my um, tablet just flipped over. But anyway, you're at Folk Zeus. We got another discussion tonight. Regular Sunday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Trying to keep consistent and do it every Sunday until we can get this thing off the ground. Um, so anyway, we've got a subject today, which another kind of like a cute little question to ask, that does mediocrity rule? And we'll get into the gist of that as we go along. But the first disclaimer I'll put out in front is that I'm not a critic. I've uh, said that in a couple other videos that if you've followed it all here. Um, I'm not a critic, but that said, is or anyone anyone be qualified to be a critic? I mean, we all have our what would you call it, preferences and ideas about what things should look like, sound like, um, and we can put it in terms of, we can be critical in terms of historical reference. Does that fit that genre? Does that work with this? Is that the right song or the right painting for the right environment? So I mean, those are at the heart of any kind of critical thinking, is to as is that in terms of art, is to, does it fit? Is it working? It's like kind of the same thing as trying to get, what is a fact and what is, bullshit, what is a lie, or what is whatever. I mean, some things are just definable. You can, and art is that way. It's not, you can't define it as great art or pedestrian art, or just, not art at all. So that's all based on opinion, and everybody's got their opinion, and I hope um, that you can deal with that and not have to get any definite um, stasis from what I'm going to tell you today. But anyway, all right. So I'm going to look at two terms. I talk about the rule of mediocrity. Does it rule? Does mediocrity rule? Versus, are we in a state of mediocrity? So that's two different ways that I'm going to kind of look at this as we go. So we're in a point right now where you can make arguments for that we've hit our peak, maybe in the world as being artists, and it's all downhill from there. However you want to view it. But what is causing that mediocrity? If you do believe that it does exist, that there is that. Now I'll go into my argument as to why we have to kind of rebuild the actual art from the ground up, from the grassroots, and we'll get back to that grassroots renaissance theme. Um, but if you look at it from in his historical purposes, and the difference between mediocrity being the rule, meaning there's things have happened throughout history, and in the world, in business and everything else, that has kind of demanded a certain point of, that's, you want to hit that lowest common denominator instead of achieving art and putting it out there and letting people absorb it and take it in as art. Just trying to hit that. And as songwriters, we often talk about the common chord. We want everyone to be as many people as possible, to be able to relate. And when I start writing songs, I'll start to think that, hey man, this is something that a lot of people are going to get. They're going to relate to this. They can get that. So it's a possibility to maybe make more people hearing it. And when you want to hear it, you can get to the point where you create a painting, or write a book or whatever, and then nobody really wants to read. It's like maybe this podcast, maybe nobody wants to see it. And anyway, so like I'm doing it live, just on the side. I am doing it live, and I realize that right now I don't have anybody watching, because it does say who's kind of chimed in. So, but anyway, hopefully after the fact, you're going to get something out of it as people watch it and that. But I do want this to be a discussion as we go. So hopefully, if you enjoy the video, you'll maybe try to get in on a Sunday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time for next week. I'll be here every week. and I'm going to make that commitment, whether I'm on the road or not. But anyway, back to the subject matter at hand here. Made some notes, so I'm going to be looking over here and reading, and then we're going to take that term mediocrity, but I'm going to take it at its root word, which is mediocre. So, and I'm going to go to Lady Google. Definition of mediocre.
Here's the definition of mediocre: of only moderate quality, not very good.
Okay, I thought she'd give me something a little more substantial than that, but I think everybody gets the gist of that. So say there's a like it reaches that common denominator where it's kind of like it's moderate. We median. That term median also can enter into this. What's the median acceptance? When music becomes too much of a business, the art suffers. I'd argue that. Okay, is there any kind of objective kind of testing that we can do for that? No, we can't. But as artists, we tend to hone our craft and our art to a point to where we can recognize where things aren't going to work. There's not. It really doesn't have that beauty that we're going for and all that. And it's all in the intent as well. So, but as far as that word mediocre, we're just going to kind of use that as a general. Okay, things maybe we're better, and there's and I'd argue that there's a lot of great art out there, but nobody's seeing it. There's a lot of really great books being written, but what people are mostly consuming is the popular, what's being driven them. The media itself and the business world itself has driven you to certain topics, and you're going to that. You're going to want that. So maybe a great poem that's really well written and it's like has all the qualities and it's beautiful and whatever. And nobody's going to see it. And that's something I was going to bring up later, but I'll bring up now is that the best songs are never or rarely heard. And you can argue that there was, been a lot of great songs that you've heard on the radio, and it's been real popular. And this is the best song. And I've mentioned this before. There are no best songs. There aren't no best singers. There are no best bands. There are no best painters. There are no best, like even in architecture. Okay. So, I mean, we can look at it in history and say that was a great work of architecture, so and we could say that was maybe the pinnacle of that era of whatever. You could talk in those terms, but you can't really have any objective judgment as to what is. So I mean, I'm seeing around. One of the things that I'm seeing all the time now, and increasingly, and it's been something that's been with us for, I mean, I could go back in the 80s, and it's been contests in the arts. We go and we have okay, you submit your song to be judged by somebody that is just, as a songwriter. Maybe some got lucky and got a hit with it or something, or somehow, you never know. I mean, I'm not putting down anybody that's in the panel, but you don't know. It's somebody just out of the blue taking your song and judging it and say, yeah, this qualifies as getting an award. So, and I'll go into that too, is that there were way too many awards. That kind of dilutes it, kind of like says, okay, well, and I, in a way, when I promote stuff and I've got let's say a friend that's going to be a special guest at one of my gigs, I will promote him or her as award-winning songwriter, because I know damn well that if you're a songwriter, been doing it for a long time, you probably got some kind of an award. If not, you should. They got my award. It's the Zeus Award. If I pick you to be on, that's the award. I'm looking back. I can look back. My Houston country people might remember the old FUD giving out the River Oaks Redneck Awards every year, and I got a couple of those. So those are probably my most proud awards that I got from Joe Parsons. Joe Parsons was the River Oaks Redneck, and may he rest in peace. Was a good friend. The guy that promoted the scene. This is from the Day from Blancos over in River Oaks. River Oaks, for people not in Houston, River Oaks is like probably the fanciest. Yeah, I would say, yeah, for definitely the most the fanciest, where most rich people out of old money, and that, and it's like it would just happen to be there. It was an old honky tonk from years back when it was, still kind of semi-rural in that area. Um, it goes, it was a different name for a while, but then turned into Blancos, and anyway, there's a long story, and maybe we'll do a whole episode on talking about the classic venues in Houston and all that. But where was I going with that? Okay, yeah, I mean, so it's like awards, yeah. So we're talking about that, and it gets to be where if you look at the Grammys for music, okay, the Academy Awards or the movie stuff like that. Okay, these are prestigious awards, but still, they're still, how many times have you seen, man, that movie won that award? And I bet you most people in the industry are probably consider some kind of a thing that happened there that's kind of like, I don't know. And like I said, it got into that mediocre. Everything was so mediocre, maybe in that category, or just it just happened that it rose above somewhere. Somebody promoted it well enough and got enough of votes to do that. So I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I think it's a contributing factor to some of the mediocrity that we are. And you might not think, you might say, hey, all music is great. It's getting better and better and better and better. That's your opinion. Okay. So you can change the channel, keep scrolling, or what they say, or turn me off. But I'm making that argument right now here. Now, I'm looking at publishers and corporate labels, like large labels, legacy labels, and what has happened in those legacy labels have taken over publishing on the artists that appear on those labels, and they have that publishing for the duration, and it behooves them to push the same music consistently. We see all these classic rock stations. We see, contemporary adult stations, even the urban stuff. They're playing. They want to play those songs because they can continue to make that money, and then they'll throw in some new stuff along the way. But right now, there's not that big push. What made the 60s and 70s really great for popular music. We're talking the popular music, and because the popular music was doing so well, um, the grassroots brought it into volition. They came from underneath and provided all these opportunities for the labels, for small labels to thrive, and small radio and all that. So it was a really happening time in the 60s, 70s. But all the labels that eventually came out of that didn't fold, they came out, they merged, got bought out, whatever. And there's like basically there's four major labels right now, four conglomerates, and they all have publishing arms, meaning that they take the money that from all the airplay that they have. They're collecting the pub, so it's in their best interest to lobby for and to push out as much of the old music. I call it the SOS, the same old shit. Okay, and some of that same old shit's really great. I love it. I've heard it way too much that I want to hear something new. And it's good some of the old kids can hear that. But if you think about it, anybody that's old enough to remember, if you, let's say you're back in the 60s or 70s, you really didn't listen much to your parents' music as much. And so there was that divide right at that point, to where it's kind of like they saw the fact that, hey, these kids are not, they're not really into the what we can't keep selling that same stuff, and we didn't have the big conglomerates at the time, so we didn't have, we're trying to, they're trying to resell that stuff. We had, like I said, I mentioned Sha Na Na before. Sha Na Na was bringing back some of that old stuff, but they had a shtick. They had their, they did the dress up and the whole bit. So I mean, when you go, look back and see that divide that happened, to where all of a sudden, oh, we need a bunch of new music. But once that block, let's say by the 80s and 90s and stuff, and everything became, yeah, they started to break it up, like we said before, into genres, and it got to be where you had to sound like this person or that person to fit into that block and all that. So it kind of took away from the edge of the artistic. This is basically this is my observation, opinion, and from what I've learned over the years and what I believe is has been happening. And I mean, you could check me on the history of this and that. I'm not talking out of my ass about that. That's kind of what's been happening, and there's been a lot of mergers and a lot of takeovers and people signing. Now you see a lot of artists signing off their publishing or their catalog, signing their catalog off to a major publisher. It's a because they know that they're going to be pushing it. They'll make mailbox money until they die. Most of these people selling off these catalogs really don't have to worry about money. So, and I don't want to get too bogged down too with just talking about the business of it all, because it's the art that we're trying to discuss and trying to get to a point of promoting, to help to promote ideas and strategies to get the grassroots, to get those songs, those best songs that are never heard, to get them heard by more people. Because as an artist, you know unless you're a real recluse, or you're writing them for yourself, but in the end you want other people to hear them. You want to share. You want to be able to make that connection and share with people. So, you want to achieve that art. You want to feel real good about your stuff, but you also want to get it out. Now you can do it in a very commercial sense, or you can just do it going trying to play busking in corners and stuff and playing your stuff, having people enjoy it, hear it. Maybe somebody will compliment, whatever your idea of success might be at that point. Once you've created something, is to get it out there. And all these things that I'm talking about kind of meld together. But this is something specifically that we're at that point, and I believe we are at that point to where we're because of all these factors that I'm telling you, like there's too much little bits of recognition to kind of quell that thing is. So I mean, people aren't maybe looking for the art; they're looking for reach that mediocrity. Um, and of course, I talk in general terms, and like I said, there's tons of great music being produced and also being put. A lot of time people don't know where to go with the good stuff and all that. So what kind of surfaces, and what, even if you go out to live music scene, or you get out in the either the bar scene or the restaurant scene, and you're listening to you're going to hear mostly cover music. Cover bands have always been around, but I made a note here. I mean, it kind of uh yeah, okay. Yeah, I had a this is a something I kind of came up with, is that new music often takes a back seat, and that that concept is uh, wasn't wasn't what was happening before that divide that I talked about. And now if they're pushing the old catalogs, they're pushing the old stuff up. So a lot of that, you're not going to get a whole lot of support from labels unless you get to a certain point, and they're going to be if you want to get up and get most people to hear your stuff, you're going to have to, like I said, get on the radio, get somebody behind it. It's all money based. But that's something that we're not going to dwell on too much. And the best songs never heard. I thought about that quote, using a quote from Neil Young, one of his songs. It says, "Hey, hey, rock and roll will never die." Remember that song? What? Yeah, rock and roll will hey, hey, rock and roll will never die. And I've got a song, "Forever Love and Rock and Roll." I mean, it's kind of like it's that vision of greatness. Rock and roll. Rock and roll is such a great thing. But I mean, as we see now, how it's fractured and fragmented. And is it rock and roll anymore? Is it really rock and roll? What do we consider rock and roll? And go back, you can watch my thing on genres, and I talk a little bit depth on how to define your music. if you're, if you're wanting to do that at all. Uh, but it's one of the things too is like it, and then after I thought about that, I said, but it may be turning a bit decrepit. So it might, you know what I mean? It's not dying, but when it sometimes needs a little shot of something to keep it alive. So, uh, and it's not happening from replaying that old music. I mean, that's all great. Yeah, we keeping that stuff alive. Yeah, we are because people are making money on it. But there are still people that are writing new music that is as good as that old stuff, but it's not rising to the top. And even people in the grassroots aren't wanting to hear. They'd rather a Bob Dylan song than whatever. Or whatever, Mark Zuston, whatever. So they kind of tend to go to the classics, and that's natural, but something that from the grassroots we have to say people, hey, take a listen to this, and if the only thing that's rising up is mediocrity, then we're going to lose large base of fandom, you might call it, or support, and from the grassroots listeners. Um, Looking at another thing that's been happening, and well, it's been happening for a long time, and it's getting even more pervasive is the concept or the karaoke. Um, and I understand why people like it and do it, and but when it starts to become where you start, the way I look at it, karaoke is a beautiful thing for maybe a live music place that has live music bands on the weekends. They maybe have a acoustic open mic or something, and then on Tuesday or Wednesday they have a karaoke night. I could see that, whatever, for some of the regular customers, people want to come in and do that. But when it starts being, lately it got to a point that you never would see karaoke on a Friday or Saturday night. Now there's bars that are karaoke bars that do it all the time. It's like, drive me nuts, man. So, but it's gotten to a point to where it's creeping in where now you got a live band on Saturday, you got Friday, you got a karaoke out from a place that used to have live bands Friday and Saturday. That's huge. That's huge to take away a lot of the time for people that are really working at putting their stuff together to lose that date. And granted, I mean, people want to get drunk and sing, to tapes, and that it's something that people like to do, and God bless you if you want to do it. But how about let's put it on a Tuesday or Wednesday or something like that. We put it a little bit earlier in the week, but that's my druthers. I'm just in as an example that it's getting very, and when that happens, people get used to that. You're going to get in the bar. The other thing too, moving beyond karaoke, we've got internet jukeboxes now. Now, I rail against those things, man, because you can hear anything you want. The beauty of it is you can hear anything you want on an internet jukebox, but the curse of it is that you can play anything that anybody wants. So you can't create. So as a venue, you would like to think that the venue wants to create a certain ambiance. They want to create a certain scene. They want to have, they want to be able to attract a certain crowd, whatever, that's business. That's something. And now with the internet jukeboxes, they're just looking for it because they have it there because they know they can make some money because they're money makers. The old jukeboxes weren't quite, they've got it set up to a point and it's more expensive. And people, like I said, people can play anything and they pay extra because it's an obscure tune. And so it's gotten to be a mess where you walk in a bar, you don't know what you're going to hear in that jukebox. It could be a nice fern bar, kind of a real nice, quiet little fern bar. And then somebody comes in and plays, and he could dial it up on his phone or she, whatever, and play like Pimp Daddy Mofo, and it's the place starts pumping or something, and it's not the right thing for the club. So I mean, I see it all the time, and maybe people don't know any different if you're younger, but there were places where you'd go in and say, I like that place. I like that place, man. They got a great jukebox. How many people out there, leave a comment if you wanted about an experience or something where it's like, yeah, or mention a club that you think I might know of that. Yeah, they had a great jukebox. One of the places I went. I remember I mentioned in one of my travel logs, passing by this place that back in the 70s, a place called Stormy Mondays with about a progressive station, rock and different genres too, in Chicago. But back in the day, when it was really first starting, they were really cool. They played a lot of different kinds of. They play some like local folk and local blues, and that so they were mixing that in with some new stuff. I mentioned it that I remember Hawkwind was the first time I ever heard. I don't know if even anybody remembers. And Pink Floyd, they were kind of coming up in the same time. So the early that kind of stuff. So and then all kinds of stuff. But it's still to this day they got taken over by a corporate entity, and they started doing. They used to just do the only commercials they would do is the DJ reading the commercial kind of thing, and they never would have a processed or a taped commercial or anything. Eventually, they got and they're doing like a commercial station now, but they still it's a good place to find some new music being played. So get off on that tangent a bit, but anyway, but internet jukeboxes have, once you got to the point where you can play anything, uh, I personally think it's a bad thing, and it creates a mediocrity in the whole bar scene. Like every bar is the same now as far as what music they're playing on their jukebox or the availability. I mean, the customers still are going to be, but anybody can walk in and kind of destroy the vibe, and I mean, I've known some places that'll shut it down. All of a sudden, it'll be a place where it's chill, and somebody will play some wild stuff or whatever and they'll just skip it, and then you may create bad blood that way. Who wants that? So, all right, next thing is karaoke. Pro karaoke. I don't know if you can think about that for a second. These are actually good singers, people that sing well and well trained or well practiced singers that'll play to some recorded tape. They'll buy a karaoke track or whatever or set series of karaoke tracks, and I mean, obviously, you can buy recorded music without vocals in it. They have programs where you could take the vocals out of a track and that. So I mean, there's ways to or take the guitar and whatever, there's ways to do that. And so people just go out and they come in there and they croon and they sing. There's guys that make a living doing that. And I don't know if that's not mediocrity. I don't know what is, but I don't care how good a singer you are. If the band's not live, it puts it on a whole different level. And so I respect a little bit more when I know some people that actually they play all the instruments. So they'll play a piano part and a bass part and a second guitar part, and they'll play their guitar and they'll play the tracks that they recorded, and they'll play over it and sing over it. And I could get that a little bit more. At least that's showing some creativity and some ability to say this is I want to represent my music. This is my stuff. Even if I'm doing covers, this is me playing. I'm not taking some generic track and crooning over some generic track. So I mean, that's been going on for a long time, but a lot more now because it's easier. And then people do it to create beat tracks and stuff like that, and electronics and all that. You can say, "Well, is it better?" You walk into a club and you see a band with a live drummer. You know, it's like, and you feel it, and you can watch it, and it's like, there's something about a good drummer, keeping it together for a band. I don't care what genre we're talking about, but I mean, it's that kind of thing. So, but then all of a sudden you'll see somebody come in and they're using just some track, and all of a sudden you hear something that sounds like drums. It's a drum track. It sounds like it's drums, but it's like, where's the drummer? And it's like I said, to get another level of that mediocrity sets in on you. So it's like, okay, we're losing that. Okay. And you want to cut with the economics of it all. If people are out there trying to get jobs, I perform solo a lot, so I should talk. But I perform solo songs that work as that and are expected to be in, and in situations where you don't want the drummer. No, no, we don't need a drummer for this. And most of the time I'm doing like a background gig or something, or if I do the showcase gigs as a solo. I mean, I am a folk singer, and that's kind of what my main gist is: singer, songwriter, folk singer. So yeah, so I'll do those solo gigs, and make them work as solo. I mean, there are people out there doing solo gigs now because there's more of them. So there's a lot of get people jumping in to these to grabbing these solo gigs, and they're really maybe not good at accompanying. There might be good singers, there might be good guitar players, but they don't have that accompaniment of the approach towards being a or piano, whatever it is. You're playing bass, you're keeping the low end down, and you have to have some kind of a structure with the low end. Then you keep some chordal things, keep some rhythm going, and that. So I mean, there are people that do that well on guitar and piano or harpsichord or whatever the hell you do. But those chordal instruments, you know, and then there's other people that, eh, they got like just they could strum through some stuff and sing over it. It's kind of like, all right, but yeah, really, I'd like to hear maybe a little bass line stuff going, stuff that's going to be holding it, and some interaction between the playing. So so that's another level of the mediocrity. You'll have people entering there they're not really good with their instrument, but can sing. They can carry it. They can sing the songs that the people want to hear. It's still live music, but it's kind of all right. But a good solo performer, it fits right in. It's great, and those are the right environments for that kind of thing. And maybe the average person doesn't know, but yeah, I think overall people tend to get excited when they hear some. You can really, when somebody think about it, when you do walk into somewhere, and all of a sudden that person or that band or whatever, all of a sudden, whoa, can get you might not know what it is that's been missing with the other bands you saw the last year or so, but all of a sudden you hit that one and say, wow, those guys, they got it together. They really, it's like it makes they static and stuff or whatever. It might be moods or stuff for you, but in general, you've probably been in those situations before where you've walked in somewhere and were so impressed and saying, wow, man, this is everything sounds right, perfect, everything's great. And it's a band, it's a real band. You recognize it's a real band too, man. This isn't like the DJ. It's not DJ. It's not, it's real. It's like, it reminds me of a little anecdote. It's a thing that you'll hear from people. They'll come up and say, "Is that a real song or did you write that?" So they'll basically saying or they'll do it opposite. He's like, "Did you write that or is that a real song?" Either way, get both sides. So indicating that, okay, just 'cause I'm just some guy that I'm not on a big stage making $1 million. I don't get to have real songs. So or doesn't I don't get radio play all the time. So I don't, they're not real. So we got to cut as a grassroots community. We have to start to work against those kinds of things that are kind of constantly against us. So hopefully we can get people to change the way they're asking that. Hey, did you write that? Just leave it there. It's the real song thing. It is a real song. Every song is a damn real song, no matter how much it sucks. So yeah, so the pro karaoke, that's what I call it. I don't know what else you would call it. Just somebody taking some basic tracks from a karaoke or whatever they make them for that. And then yeah, the back and using backing tracks in general. Went over that. I mean, like I said, that's a step up from using like generic tracks, doing your own thing and doing it. They have those loopers too, which I definitely respect that, because you actually can produce, like, say, a rhythm. You can layer, like, say, a guitar player puts it on um, like a bass. You can start with like a bass or a one part, and do kind of some strumming thing and do something. So you can layer it, keep going on, and then sing over it. But yeah, you know, you you punch a button and it records that and loops it and keeps it going, and then you can put another one on top of there. It has to be the kind of song that does repeat, you know. It can't be anything too avant-garde or too progressive or anything. But yeah, it's just some kind of groove, you know, 3 chord, 4 chord groove that kind of keeps repeating and stuff. And yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, it's something I didn't think about before this, but that is a step up with people that do want to do the backing tracks or something. You know, they can do something where they actually perform it live. But then again, you can't be just mediocre. You have to have some talent. You have to have some, and you have to put some time into it. You have to put some thought into it. And so, um, moving on. Okay. Like I said, there's always been cover bands. Uh, But, um, lately, more and more people are demanding more, more of that stuff. I've railed a little bit against, tribute bands. I can respect some of them, and if you do it real well, and and if it's the right, you know, situation to have that. I mean, it's so pervasive right now that I think it's kind of, uh, pulling away, I think, from the originality that we need to have on the circuit. So, um, but you know, the taste for the SOS, I say the SOS, same old shit, kind of demands that happens. So, from the grassroots movement that we're kind of promoting here, you know, the grassroots renaissance, as I say, and I think it's is happening. I do talk to some people that are definitely doing working from there, in various genres. You know, we do have, you know, you got your blues societies, you got, people that are involved in jazz companies and artist communities. You know, visual artist communities are still around, and we need to support them as much as you can. So when you have, if you have the ever have the opportunity to uh, to help them out, or just show up to the damn shows, you know, just to make an effort. If you know anybody that's in art and they have a showing at a gallery or something, make sure you show up, pack that place. Make sure, even if you don't buy anything, if you buy something if you can, but if you even if you don't buy anything, just you know, help that scene to keep moving and rolling along. There's not a whole lot of promotion that those kinds of things get on the major level. You know, you look at your broadcast TV news shows. They'll always come out and promote something. They'll promote, it's the rodeo in Houston coming in, and they'll go, well, it's like, and they'll say this, Beyonce's new album, or whatever. It's like this is the huge festival that's going on downtown, and this is like that kind of thing. So it's all the big stuff and the corporate stuff and the high ticket stuff, and they'll promote that, but rarely, at least uh, in this market where I'm at in Houston, and most markets, I would argue most markets, that's the stuff that gets pushed, that gets covered. You know, there might be a little snippet somewhere, somewhere along the line. They'll do a little cutesy kind of, oh, listen to this, look at this little folk singer guy over here. Isn't that cute? But yeah, but go see old Beyonce. She's going to have this big, huge thing going on, and we're going to interview her and all that kind of crap. So you know what I'm saying? So it's like you gotta, we have to kind of like start to make noise from underneath and talk to a lot of people and get some people, get more people on our side, to get people to show up to the grassroots events that we are putting on. Um, all right, so I don't want to go too long today, and I do appreciate anybody out there that's stuck around on this podcast. I'm doing this every Saturday. Every Saturday, no, Saturday, Sunday, every Sunday. I'm on the Sabbath. I'm in the wrong Sabbath. I'm in the wrong religion. Um, 8 p.m. Central Time. So definitely do that. Trying to improve my lighting, trying to improve the audio, whatever I can do. So definitely spread the word if you can, and definitely subscribe to this channel. It'll give you some notifications, and I think there is that notification bell you can hit. So I'm just trying to get it off the ground here. And we're going to move beyond this these levels of mediocrity, and hopefully I've made an argument and put in a little bit of inspiration um, to folks out there that we need to support the grassroots events. You can't. I know you can't support them all. I have. There's some really good uh, supporters in this Houston scene that are doing what they can. They get out to see live music as often as they can, and they support the original stuff, the local art, the local theater, and that we need to definitely support whatever's out there. When you see it's original, when you see it's something new, because we're getting stuck in that. Everything's the old stuff. It's in nostalgic. Yeah, all great. That's all good, but there's something beautiful about hearing something that you've never heard before. That's really at the top, and that I said there's no objective criteria that's available you could say, well, this is what to look for to make it good. You have to kind of raise up your expectations as a listener too, and to kind of like saying, yeah, uh, I want to hear some new stuff. I don't I've heard Zeppelin and whatever, even Paul Simon and all this that all great stuff, but uh, we want to bring some new music up through the grassroots and raise them up. Anyway, okay, that's it for today. I do appreciate y'all. We'll see you next week. Bye.